Thank you. So everyone, hello. So we will continue our lecture from the last point, where in last lesson we talked about the HTML, CSS, and JavaScript a little bit. So we will continue today with the more information about the CSS and the CSS Box Model, and then we will continue with the semantic HTML elements. I think we will talk about it. In this lesson, we will get more information about this. So I will use my colleagues' slides this time fully. And the first thing that we should talk about is this CSS box model. So what is that? If you remember, we had such things like padding and margin in the last lesson. We will use that, and I will explain how to use them in properly. So in CSS box model, we have mainly three elements. It's a margin, border, and padding. For example, I will firstly explain you as an example. For example, house. I think all of you know about the houses, and I like to explain everything by building the houses. For example, if we have two neighbors, the first one and the second one, imagine that the it's a first element and it's a second element. Our element is the house, and the distance between the house and its walls, call it in HTML as padding. For example, we can have a padding top, padding bottom, padding right, and padding left. And also, we can have a distance between two houses, between their walls. This distance called as margin. So, and our walls of our house is called as borders. So the next thing that I can show you here, how to work with the padding and margin in real project. So we will open our VS Code editor and continue from the place that we left in our last lesson. We can open it on our browser, and I will delete everything from the last time. So, for example, if we open some kind of div, house 1, for example, let's make it ID, house 1. House 1. And we will go to CSS and give some styles to this element, house 1. Let's make it height 200 pixels and width also 200 pixels. Background color red. So imagine that it's our house. In your DevTools, if you open that, you can see the styles, and here you can see the box model of our HTML element. The first thing is the content. The content is 200 pixels to 200 pixels. I mean width and height. And the next thing is our padding. We do not have any kind of paddings. That's why it's not showing us. And the next thing is our border, and the next thing is our margin. We will continue by adding padding to our element. For example, padding 40 pixels from each side. Now, as you can see, we have a padding 40 pixels from all the sides, and we can add the border. First thing that you should mention here is the thickness of the border. For example, we can make it 10 pixels. We can make it solid. Solid is the straight line. And the next thing is the color of our border. For example, it will be black. To see it more precisely. So we have a 10 pixels border, and we have an element that's height and width is equal to 200 pixels. And as you can see, we have a border from each side 10 pixels in our box model in our browser DevTools. And the next thing, we should add the next element, house 2, for example. Our house 2 will look like this, but with different kind of color, for example, green and the yellow. So, as you see, they have the same box model, but as I have mentioned here, the distance between two elements is called as margin. So we can give it to some kind of margin bottom, for example, for 40 pixels, margin bottom, and it became 400 pixel in our box model. So by default, all of the sites will have the inherited margin value. Therefore, you can see the yellowish background here on my browser. So the next thing is, as I have mentioned, border, padding, and the content itself. We will go back to our slide, and here we can see that the top margin, top border, top padding, we also can use the padding, and we also can define the paddings, margins, and borders from each side, not all together. For example, I have written here padding 40, but I can make it like this. Padding top 40 pixels, padding right 20 pixels, padding bottom 10 pixels, and padding left 0. So our this styles will overwrite this style. Therefore, I can delete it for now. And as you can see, our padding and the box model have changed. Here you can see that as we mentioned, padding top is a 40, padding right is 20, padding bottom is 10, and the padding we do not have any kind of padding from the left side. So it's a one way to define the paddings. It's not more preferable because you can write the padding with another example. Here you can define from each side separately, but you can do like this. For example, padding top 40 pixels. If we leave like this, all of the sides will have the same padding, but if you continue to write the values, 40 pixels, 20 pixel, 10 pixel, and the 0 pixel. It will get our padding top will get the 40, padding right 20, padding bottom 10, and the padding left 0, because it's constructed like this, that it will work as an in clockwise order when you write the values for our padding, margin, and also the border. So as you can see that the nothing has changed, but our box models stays the same: 40, 20, 10, and nothing 0. So it's more preferable than this, because as you can see we use less code. But if you want to learn more, for the first time it's more preferable, because you will understand for which side you are giving the paddings. And the next thing you can do like this, that you can delete the last two values, and you can leave the 40 and 20. In this case, top and bottom paddings will become 40, and the left and the right paddings will become 20 pixels. We will see that. So here the top and bottom is 40, left and right is still the 20. It will work for all the box model elements like margin, padding, and the border. So the next thing that I should mention here is that as you can see, we have given the height and width to our element, 20 pixels, but 200 pixels height and width. But if you go to the developer tools and see the elements, how to say, height and width, it shows you as 260 width and the 300 height. It becomes more than that we have defined here. 200 height and 200 width. It's because that we do not have defined another value for our box sizing. There's the property like box sizing, and the box sizing content box. As you can see, nothing has changed. So box sizing content box is the default value for box sizing element. But if we box sizing border box, when we will change to this element, our element can become 200 to 200, and it becomes square element. So when you do not want to count the padding and borders as the element as the element's height and width, you can use the border box value for box sizing element. In this case, I will go like this with this example. So elements no, not border box, content box. So in the first case and in the second case, I will show how the elements height and width are counted. So in default case, in content box case, our elements height, for example, height is the height that we give, height initial, for example, and its padding, L padding top, element L padding bottom, and the border top and border bottom. in this case, it will add all of the heights, and our element cannot become the 200 pixels. It will become more. You can give only the height and width for the element's content, but in this case, our full height and width will become as we have defined it. You will not add the elements paddings, elements, and also element border. So in more practical case, we can make some piece of design that I have given you in Discord, if I'm not mistaken. We can make this part, for example. If we define this element as some kind of HTML element, we can define it as an ordinary box model. So we do not have any kind of. So it's our element, as you can see. And the next thing that we should have is the, oh my God, elements content. Still this, for example, here, you can see element like this. So this, oh my God. This is our padding. This is our padding from each side. We can give it the padding from each side, like I have defined it. Yes, and the distance between two elements is the margin. So I will continue with this. And we can work with the, how to say, Figma as well. So I can log in and I can continue. Oh my God. So if we made this element, how we can make these elements practically. For example, we have some kind of what is called service boxes. Service box. For example, 6. We have the 6 elements, and all of them will have some kind of h1 element. First one is the search doctor element. Let's make all of them search doctor, search doctor, search doctor, search doctor, and the search doctor. We can give the same style to the all elements. Service box. Service box. We can get its height and width from the Figma. As you can see, here's all of the codes that we need. Width and height. We can write like this, width and height. For example, we will make it background color gray. Gray. And we can see the result. Here's the 6 elements. As you can see, they do not have the padding because between content and its border there is no any kind of distance. So padding, we do not have padding. We can see the padding and continue with it. For example, we can have the 40 pixels from each side to make it look like this. Padding 40 pixels from each side. So As you can see, we now have paddings, but our element become bigger. The size is not the same as we have defined. In that case, we can add the thing that I have mentioned, box sizing, border box here, and our element will look like as we have defined it, as the measurements that we have given. The next thing that we can continue with is make some service wrapper. Service wrapper. Service wrapper. And as the previous lesson, we can make it display with display flags that we will learn in the next lesson. Display flags, all of them will become next to each other. They will locate next to each other, and we can give the element padding. Not the padding, margin from the right side, for example, because our elements have the distance between them. It's here defined as 34 pixels. 34 pixels, and all of them will have the 34 pixels distance, but our elements will become more, how to say, secure, and we can do some magic here. Flex wrap, and the next thing we will add the margin bottom, 34 pixels. As you can see here, our element become the as we have measured and given, and we have the padding because between the elements borders that we cannot see. For example, we can define it. Border 1 pixel solid red. Between our element and its border, there's the padding, and there is the margin between our elements. We can see it on box model. So here is the result. Padding 40 for each side, border 1 pixel from each side. We have only the margin from the right and the bottom sides. So it's called the box model. You can continue with designs that I have given like this, and you can make it on your own because it's very easy to make, and you can just copy the code and continue with the making layout with HTML and CSS. So if you understood the box model, we can continue with the positions. We can, how to say, continue with these elements. I think it's better to delete them. So what is the position? Position is the properties that define our elements position relatively to some kind of elements, to parent elements, for example, to our browser window, or it can have the absolute position relatively to the parent element. So when we create any kind of element, it will have the static position, house 1, height 200 pixels, width 200 pixels, and background color is still the red. So when we go to browser, our element can have the static position. Position static. Nothing has changed. Nothing has changed. Defaultly, all of the created HTML elements will have the position static, but we can we can change the element's position in order to locate it according to another element. For example, we can do the we can make the another elements 2, 3, red, green, and let's make it gray. So we have 3 elements, but all of them have this same position static property, and nothing has changed. But when we change our element to, for example, absolute, it has disappeared because we didn't locate it according to our elements. So house 1 is still here, but you cannot see that position. When you remove the position absolute property, it will become how to say visible when you change the position elements. So according to our slides, we will start with the fixed, I think. Then we will go to the relative, and the last thing we will talk about the absolute positioning. So all of them you should make it static. So if you have ever seen in some kind of sites, web platforms, there is some kind of magic happens. For example, height, we can give the height to our body 200 pixels, 2000 pixels, and we can scroll our page. But in our magic, for example, this element follows you when you scroll. It can be done with the position fixed. We will make the first red square as the position fixed, and it will follow us. How? As you can see, it follows us when we are scrolling our page. So we can make it, for example, with 100% and the height 100. As you can see, it works as the sticky menu in our web page, but it's sticky to our elements top. So how the position element is position fixed element is positioned, and relatively to what element it can be positioned. So there is a question, and we can answer it like this: that the position fixed element is positioned according to our viewport. Viewport is this white place in our browser. If you can see my measure my computer, it's called the viewport, and the sticky fixed element is positioned according to this element. And for example, if we make our position, if we want to make our element to be positioned on the bottom of our viewport, we can do it with some CSS properties, like bottom. If we write bottom 0, it will have it will stick up to the bottom of our viewport. If we write the 0 to top, it will stick to the top of our viewport. Let's make it 200 pixels again to see the difference. So top, it follows. If we write the right, it stick it to the right side of our viewport. If we write bottom, nothing has changed. And if we write left, it stick to the left side. Defaultly, it sticks as stick it and fix it to the left and the top side of our page. But we can, as I have wrote here, we can change that, but it still remains the same. How we can fix that? We have a property like position, not position, but the margin after that will give our element the same margin from each side, and you can see that our element follows us on the center of the page. So if you have ever seen, there is some kind of sites with the spam. When you open that kind of sites, the advertisement shows up in the center of our page, and when we scroll, it will continue to scroll with us until you find some kind of little close button here. Now, with position fixed, you can create this kind of spam elements, or you can use it in a useful way. Make a fixed menu element or the fixed navigation element on the bottom of our, how to say, web page. So, and the next thing that I should show here is the position relative. So we will make comment for top, bottom, left, right, and we will change the position fixed to position relative. So nothing has changed. The first element still remains in the same place, and you cannot see the result, but its default position static has changed to position relative. With the position relative, you can move your element with the top, bottom, left, and right. Top, bottom, left, and right properties in CSS. For example, we will start with top. Top, 50 pixels. As you can see, no. Oh my God. As you can see here, our top element has moved from the top of our page for 50 pixels. As you can, so here you can see that with the top, we can move our element. We wrote top, but if we write static, it will not work. Our top, left, and bottom elements. In order to position elements with the top, left, right, and bottom, you have to use position relative, and after that you can move it with these position elements. So position relative by left, for example, 100 pixels. As you can see, it became the on a right side, because it, how to say, it will go from the left side to the right side when you write the left. It will not go to left, it will go to right from the left side. So bottom for example, 200 pixels. Nothing has changed because we already have mentioned the top element. Therefore, our bottom property will not work. But when we, delete the top, it will go to the top of our page for 200 pixels. And also, here's the right, 400 pixels. It will not work because we already have the left element. Therefore, we can delete the left and it will go to left for 200 pixels. So relative means that our element is positioned according to the relative element. Our wrapping relative element. So with this kind of positioning, we can make some kind of beautiful magic. For example, here's the three elements. With these three elements, we can move our element and make look like this, that the top will become 100 and the left become also 100. As you can see, it has changed, and also we will add these lines to the next thing. It also has changed, but we can, for example, no. House 2, we can move this element like this. No. I have changed the height. I didn't want that. So you can give it a negative value, for example, 200, not 200, 100 pixels, one, for example. And for the third element, you also can give like this. And elements will go to, on the top of each other with this kind of magic. And top minus 150 pixels, minus 150 pixels. And the next thing is also we should copy that, but with the bigger value, for example, 250 pixels. I think it's not have changed because I have missed the position relative property here. So you can see that we can manipulate with all of the boxes using the position relative with its properties top, left, and right bottom. And we can make like this, that all of them will continue to some kind of cards on top of each other. So it was the magic, and when we reload our page, it will remains the same. So in this point, we should continue with another of our property that comes with the positions. For example, as you can see that the red square block is on the last layer, and the second element, our green square, is on the second layer, and our third gray element on the third layer. It become more confused because if you don't have worked with Photoshop, you can confuse on that place. For example, how the elements are positioned and how we can change its position on the layers. For example, it's our first square, and the next square, and our sort square. Imagine like that. It's our first element, second element, and it's our sort element. So if you want to first element to be on the top, you can change its layer by the property called z-index. For example, we want to first red element be on the top of z green and the gray squares. So z-index, we can give it a value 0, 0. Nothing has changed because defaultly all of the elements have the position, not the position, z-index 0 when you are when you are creating them, and the elements that come next to the first element will have the not the bigger z-index but the more priority to be appeared on the top. So if we give this element that index 1, it will become on the top. So as you can see, it become on the top of our green and the gray squares. But when we we can add the z index to our second green element as the z index 2. As you can see, the element that was before on the top of all of the elements will become on, how to say, become the more distant element in our set of elements. So the next thing, for example, we can also give this element 3 and it will become as it was. But you can, how to say, relate with it and see the difference. What's happening here also? How each element, all of the elements are changing between the layers. So I think that's enough for the relative, and the next thing we should talk about is the relative. Well, not the relative, but the, how to say, absolute. So the next thing that we should do here is the create. In Russian, it's called matryoshka. Elements in the each other. So all of the elements will have the same position relative. Before we will go to the position absolute, we should talk about a little bit also with position relative. 600, 400, 200. As you can see, all of the elements are become more in this order that the last element in our chain become on the top. Or you can see the order, and with the help of the position, we can move it like this. Top, it will change according to the parent element. For example, top 100 pixels, it moved, and the left 100 pixels. So it's moving relatively to the parent element. And for example, we can also move the green box left 200 pixels, not 200, 100 pixels, right, and not the top, also 100 pixels. As you can see, it become, as we have as we wanted, because it sort element went from top to 100 pixels and from the left to 100 pixels. So it was all about the position relative. The next thing that we should talk about is the position absolute. What's the position absolute? As I have mentioned, the fixed element is moved to the relatively to our viewport, the viewable area of our browser, and the position relative will position relative is positioning according to parent element, and the next our position absolute will position according to the first non-static element of our page. What it means? How we can prove that? No. I do not want to save. We all of our elements are relative now. Let's make the third element position absolute. Position absolute. As you can see, you still can see the position absolute element, and it position absolute element. If we give the position absolute element bottom 0 and the right 0, it will come up to the right and the bottom of the wrapping non-relative house2 element. If we, as I have mentioned, it will position according to the first appearing non-static element. Our house2 class have the position relative. If we remove this position relative to the position, for example, static, it will go to the next position relative elements, bottom 0 and the right 0 position. But when we change position relative to this second element, it still places on the right and the bottom side of this element. But as I have mentioned, if we all of the position absolute elements are positioned according to relative non-static, and what we can do if all of the elements are not relative or the fixed or the absolute. All of them are static. In that case, it cannot find the right place to be positioned, because it cannot find non-static parents, and it will position according to our viewport. As you can see, it goes from this place to this place, but if we compare it to the position fixed, it will not follow us when we scroll the page, but it only position to according to body element of our HTML. So we will change the position for our house 1 to relative, and it will become here. But when we change it position to position absolute, it's still here. As I have mentioned, it's not, for example, it doesn't have the priority according to positions, but it's still, how to say, will position on non-static element. We do not there is no kind of difference between the absolute, relative, and the fixed when we are positioning the child absolute element. It will still go to the first non-static element. So I think we are enough with the position sticky. I think I talked about the Z index, position sticky. So I think we do not should get more focused on position fixed elements, because its support for alt browser is not high as the position absolute, relative, and the fixed elements. But I can show you an example, and the next thing that you should do is you will learn about this on yourself in the w3schools.com. So if you have ever seen the not the position fixed, the next thing, if you have ever opened the contact list on your smartphone, there is one trick. For example, we will make this trick on our web page. Let's do that. For example, 1, 2, 3. All of our elements will have the position fixed, 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 fixed. So as you can see, when we are scrolling, all of our elements follows us, but we can do like this with 100%, here also 100%, and here also 100%. It still follows us, and the height will become also 100. 100, 100, 100. As you can see that all of the elements are appearing on top of each other. The first, for example, if we delete house 3, we can see the house 2. If we delete the house 2, we can see the house 1. They become on the top of each other. But with the position, we can do like this: top 100 pixel, and I think you can see that, and the top 200 pixels, because if you calculate 200 to 200s to 100 is 200. So it still follows us, but magic does not happen. Why? If you are not understanding what I'm meaning, you will understand now when I will show you the ABC example. A, B, C. You can see that all of them are appearing on the same place, but we do not want that. Our contact list in our cell phones do not work like this. The next thing that we should change the position fixed to position sticky. I made all of them position fixed because I wanted you have to understand the difference between the position sticky and the position fixed. As you can see, the first element goes when we go to top. When it goes to B element, first element is not following us. So third, we should also give the top position for our first element. So as you can see that no, top 200 for also let's make it 100 pixel. you can if you can see the result. Let's delete all of them. I know we shouldn't delete that. It works as the our telephone because when we continue scrolling on our contact list in our cell phone, all of the remaining letters will go to top, and you cannot see that, but the last active element will become fixed on the top of your screen. It works like this, but I think I have missed something, and all of the things does not appear as I have as I wanted, because as I said before, it's not used all the time because it's support to the only for the new browsers. I think in your browser you can make the magic happen with the W3 schools position sticky. Position sticky. I think I will be able to show you the example here. Relative, absolute, sticky. For example, here, as you can see that until sometime until our page does not scroll to the element that we have given the position sticky, it places on the same place where we have written, but when we scroll it will stick to the top. This way is called sticky. I think I should share this link with you on our Teams chat. I think you will learn yourself about the position sticky. So the next thing is not was the float, but we do not I do not want to talk about the float because it's the oldest thing I have ever seen in the HTML positioning, and I think only the dinosaur developers who still develops for the Internet Explorer from the 6th or the 9th version will work with the position float. If you are interested, you can read about the float yourself, but it's not used in our time because there are a lot of tools and the properties that works best and easier to understand than the float. There is the float properties and the float clears, and with the float you can also take position elements, but we will not talk about that. The next thing is the semantics. If you remember, let's see that when we have started, I think it's okay. With the time, the last time we talked about the semantics, and what was the semantics? Semantics was the using the right elements on the right place. We talked about the semantic relations in HTML5 markup, where we have the nav element, header element, layout, not the layout, main, article, and aside elements. It's all in general, as I have said, the semantics means that using the proper element in proper places. So as I have mentioned before, that you can use, for example, divs on all the places, but it will not be the right choice for you to make the right markup for your web page. Because firstly, if you write all of the elements as the div here, for example, we can make the h1 element as the div, it will continue to show us the same content, but the default styles, for example, will not be the same. Or in that case, we can also give this element, for example, some class h1, class h1, class font size 200, not 200, say 2 pixels, class h1. Still, it's a div. As you can see here in the result, it become more like look like a h1 element, but semantically it's not the right choice to use everywhere the same elements. Firstly, readability of our code. Readability of our code is not good. All of the elements are divs, and when it become more bigger and bigger, you cannot, for example, see the how to say difference when you write code that look like this. All of them are divs, and you do not see the where one div stops and the next starts. If you use everywhere divs or the another same similar elements. In order to make this semantically true, we have the different text with the default styles, and as you can see, the styles are the same, but our quality of readability of our code is higher, because we know that this is the opening div, and here is some kind of heading, and this is the closing div. Also, in the second example and the third example, it's the similar one. So we should talk about the semantics. It's not only about the h1s or the divs. It's used everywhere. For example, as you can see, DLDT is our one of the most used semantic elements, and as I have said, using the proper HTML elements firstly will help us to understand the code better. The next thing is use it for the search engine optimization, because when Google web robots that are indexing your web page rating, it will go to your site and open your code. It will not look to the content, or it will not look to the, how to say, view and the styles of our web page, but it will read the text. If you have used the proper text, for example, you didn't use it everywhere divs, and you have used the proper markup elements, for example, header, main, article, aside, on the right places, it will give the web page the higher rank and the high rate in search engine indexing. And for example, your HTML web page will go to top in search results. For example, if you have used the good meta tags here, and also you have used the right and the proper HTML elements, your your rating will go up and you can be on the first page of the Google. For example, when you are doing this some kind of shop or the air ticket sales shop, when someone writes on Google that where I can buy the some kind of food or the air ticket, you will go to top and appear on the first place or on the first page of Google with a high rating. So I think I have mentioned about the ID and the class before, and I will repeat one more time that the ID can be used only one time and the classes can be used several times in the web page. When you are styling your elements, there is no, how to say, difference between the ID and class, but semantically it's not right to use ID more than one time, and it also influences on the rating of your web page in search engine indexing. And as I have shown you in the validation of our HTML code, there will become the errors if you use the IDs more than one more time. So, and also ID has more the higher priority than the class. As I have mentioned, we should also remember and work with it like this. I remind you this place, and as you are seeing that if you use the semantically true true elements, it's easier to read your code. Here's the example with table data and the DL and DT examples. If you have using the right elements on the right place, this is more readable than this one. Of course, that all of them, for example, can be more confusing to you, but if you use it on your text editor with the syntax highlighting, the left one will become more beautiful than the right one. So I think we should continue with this example that I have mentioned to you before, that the HTML5 markup has the special tags for special elements. For example, the biggest element in our web page is the body, as I have mentioned it, and all of the main information will go to the header element, and the navigation bar will go to the nav tag. And the next thing is the main data of our page will go to the main tag. It was not written as main here, but on the left column we can use the main tag, on the right a side tag, and it will become more semantically true and right, and all of the how to say last information will go to our footer page. As I have mentioned, we can use it by divs or by this kind of semantically proper elements. In the second case, you have known what kind of advantages we will have. So the next thing is global semantic site structure. Before we will continue with this, I think we can take some break, about 10 minutes, and after 10 minutes we can continue with this semantic elements. Anna, can you pause the recording here?